Hello, this is a prepaid call from
Joe. Welcome to Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and today we're going to be talking about how incarceration affects the family. And before I get started, I want to introduce you to my family that's on the line. And I have my uncle, John Baker, my sister, Chantel, and my son, Boo, Joe, but y'all know him as Boo. Welcome y'all to the show. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. Let me just put my opening statement down first before we get to the questions, okay? When a family member is arrested and subsequently sent to jail, it affects the family in ways that most people don't realize or even discuss. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I want you to dig deep, open up about what it is that and how it made you feel when I came to prison and during this whole time that I've been in prison. I want you to, if you feel comfortable, share with the audience about, how it really made you feel. Don't worry about hurting my feelings. I got tough skin. So here we go. This question is going to be for all of y'all. And before you answer the question, I want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and then proceed with answering the question. And the first question that I got for you is describe what your relationship was like with me before I was incarcerated. As for you, Unc, you go first.
Okay, my name is John F. Baker Jr. I'm an author, historian, genealogist, and I sell life insurance for a living. Joe and I have always been very close. I've been close to most of my nieces and nephews as they were growing up. And by Joe and his sister Chantel and brother Stephen losing their mother at an early age, I always try to be present with them to make things as normal as possible under the circumstances. And I spend a lot of time with all three of them growing up. And though I'm not really that much older than they are, I've been sort of authoritative, so I sort of took a fatherly / uncle role with them. And one thing, I was very disappointed when this happened because I felt that I had failed in some way, because I always told my nephews, especially growing up, don't make the mistakes that some of our relatives in the past had made, and you don't want to be incarcerated. And I tried to take up time with them, try to be a good example for them. So I felt let down in one sense, and then in another sense, I was thinking maybe there's more that I could have done.
Okay, Chantel.
I'm Chantel, Joe's baby sister. I'm a single mother of 2 children, a daughter and a son. For my professionalism, I am a clinical mental health therapist. Growing up, my brother and I, we were really close. It was just the 3 of us. And, I've always been the baby sister, but the big sister, because I was really bossy and just felt like it was my job to boss both of my brothers around. So, growing up, Joe and I were, we're very close. He was and he still is, he's my best friend. So, I depended on him a lot, not just as, he was, an emotional support to me. He was that big brother. There was nothing that I couldn't go to him and talk to him about. And, he's just always been there to give me advice. And so, of course, when this happened, I was, very disappointed, but more so hurt than anything, because already experiencing a lot of abandonment. Our mother died when we were 4. Dad was locked up for the majority of our lives. And then again, here I was experiencing, my brother facing a lot of time going away. So that had a very big negative impact on my life.
Okay, Boo.
Well, for me, everybody kind of already, I think, familiar with me, so I'm going to try to save us some time. But with me, I was too young to understand the effects that it had on me until I got older and realizing how important it was to have a father figure in my life. And so by the time I was able to understand, yes, of course, I started lashing out, because as I've said in previous interviews we've done before, I started realizing my friends who had dads and being picked up from school or being in basketball games and people's dads was there. By the time I started realizing that, of course, it had a negative effect on me. And then not only that, my mom was a single parent mom. After a couple of years with the guy that she was dating, by the time she had moved left him, it was just us. So of course I could see the impact it had on, her trying to figure out, I guess, how to take care of us and make sure everything else was was at home. Okay, everything was okay as far as under their roof. But I probably was, probably about around the year granddaddy died. That probably when it started standing out to me more. So I might have been 13 or 14 before I even realized, that it had an impact on me, which was negative. And I'm gonna say this before, it was more so on the negative end because a lot of the picture that was painted to me as far as outside people, other than my Uncle Squeaker and Auntie that's on here, the good stuff that I was told about my daddy, the other people, gave me a perception that I kind of took on as who I thought he was, which was negative as well. So
right. Okay, and this next question is for my Uncle John and Chantel. Okay, describe how it affected you when you heard about my arrest.
Okay, I remember my mother telling me about it when it first happened, and I was just in disbelief. I just couldn't believe it. And knowing Joe's character, he was always fun-loving, joking, and everybody was crazy about him in the family, and it was just hard to believe that it was even real.
So,
yeah, I was in total shock. It was totally shocking. It was a hard thing to really wrap your head around. That it made me question if I really knew who you were. Like this cannot possibly be my brother, because I thought about the victims, the family of the victims, and I was like, there's no way that he could impose any of this on another family, knowing how we were impacted by not having family members, moms and dads in our lives. And so I couldn't believe it.
Right. I understand that too. Boo, this question is for you. How did my absence affect you, your brother, and your mother? Like when you got old enough to understand, describe how that affected the household.
Being raised solely, I think, by a woman, I believe a woman can only do so much for a young man or a boy. I think, the negative, how that affected was I didn't have that authoritative figure. Uncle Squeaker did what he could, and other men that had a decent mindset probably did what they could, but to actually have the voice of my biological father, I could it had an impact on me, which showed by the time we got to prison. I still yearned that even at the age 24, 25 years old of being in the cell with you, I was still trying to heed and get that guidance and that wisdom and that instruction and that chastisement and that love from you, even still being older. So I think it affected me as just not having that piece of me that I didn't understand. I had my mama, and I can kind of watch her and know where this come from and where that come from, and all of this other energy and this other mindset that I have, that piece of me is gone, and I don't feel nobody can give that to a child except the person that it come from. So by this time I'm feeling kind of lost about who I am, because the person who that lost part is connected to is not there to help guide and show me who I am. Like by the time I got in the cell with you and seeing that you were an author and seeing how intelligent you were, and then I was able to connect the pieces and say that's where they come from and use it in a positive way versus in the negative way about the little things that people said. I was trying to find that part of me, and I think that's how I think it. That's how I know it affected me.
Right. So so you think that affected your brother in the same way?
Yeah, I think it affected Montrez more, I think it affected Montrez more than it affected me. Him being the bigger brother, and then, of course, how I don't know his perspective on what he's seen as far as how it affected you not being there for mama, or but I feel that he tried to take some kind of lead, which was in the wrong direction. But I think it affected, which I can't speak for Montrez, but me personally, I think it affected him more.
Right. Okay. Now this next question is from Chantel and John. How did it affect you sitting in the courtroom listening to the evidence against me? How did it affect you personally, and how did it make you feel about me listening to that evidence? Chantel.
I remember coming to court, but for whatever reason, I think that that's more like a blur for me. Because it didn't feel real, and I feel like at that particular time I was just like in total denial of what was actually going on and what I was hearing. Again, questioning who you were. Did I really know you? Because you just have to say, this is not the person that I know. This is not the person that I grew up with. This is not the brother, the friend that I know and love. And so a lot of that was like really a blur. So I couldn't even really speak to what I was hearing, because I just felt like, I was just having a total out-of-body experience every day that I came to court.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, for me, I remember vividly, because I went about every day. Well, I did go every day. Me and my mother went me and mother went together for it, and then my grandmother even went a couple of days while she was visiting here. And then the stuff that we were hearing, we were saying, like, when we were on the way home, I can't believe that he would do that. What went wrong? He wasn't raised like that. What happened for him to even come to mind? Then, and part of it was fear that they may want you to be put to death, for that. So there was worry on top of, I can't believe that he did it, but, what if, they try to execute him for that? So it was a worry as well.
And I was on trial for death penalty, so it was a possibility of that happening. Yeah, so I understand that too, right? I do. I understand that. Chantel, at what age did you explain to my niece and nephew about, what I did, and what did you say to them?
To be honest with you, I have not had like a total in-depth conversation with them regarding, they know that you're in prison. They know that you're in prison for armed robbery and murder, or an accomplice to murder, pretty much. I made it clear to them that you weren't the person, you were involved, but you weren't the person that actually killed the person, but you were present and you took place in some of the things that went on. But to be honest with you, Deanne's 23 years old. I haven't had a sit down and had a conversation. They really haven't even asked. I think because they were both so young coming to visit you in prison, that was just, some things, when you don't know anything else, they were just able to normalize it. And so I have it. I don't know when I probably would just sit down and detail your crimes to them. For Deanne, her being the age that she is, not a conversation that I would even attempt to have with Austin at this point. I just pray that, I feel like, for our family, we've had so many of our Black men in our family to go to prison, and I just pray every day that generational curse does not fall on him.
Right. I think it won't. I think he'll be just fine. Boo, let me ask you a question. Tell me, how did incarceration change you? Your incarceration, and how did, if you think me being incarcerated, what part of you do you think it changed? What do you think you were denied by that?
What do I think I was denied by coming to? What do you mean?
Okay, the first part of the question, I want you to answer, how did you being incarcerated, what did it change anything about you?
It changed everything about me. I lost a lot.
Would you describe that?
I lost a lot of my personality. I lost a lot of my sense of humor. I lost a lot of, that fun, adventurous side of me, because incarceration orders you. It demands you to put on a way tougher uh, exterior. Like, you have to, yeah, you have to carry. And after you have become this person that you have to become, and did it for a certain amount of years, you become that. And I was able to see that, coming home over the 4 years that I've been home. I've been, like, when I look at old pictures of me, I can flash and see I'm not that I don't have that part of me no more. If I'm around certain people, it's like me and Auntie was talking about the other night, sometimes I have to fight through social anxiety, because even though I'm a social person, I'm not that social butterfly that I used to be. I'm way more observant. I'm way more, it's almost like, if I had to describe it, it's almost like I suffer from PTSD from being in prison. So by the time, being in the cell with you helped me a lot more, because for one,
helped you?
well, for one, you my daddy. So the minute I walk in there, that cell, it's a sense of release, regardless of what the nature of our relationship was, or what conversations we have and hadn't had. I walked into a cell with my daddy, whether it didn't matter where we was at. I walked into the other half of my heart. So that was, a sense of release. But by the time I got to observe and watch you, it wasn't like I was in prison. I knew where I was at, but I was more focused on the moment that I had, the experience that I was trying to gain from this person that I did not know, that I wanted to know. So, and then watching you do the stuff, like I was saying earlier, your intelligence, the writing the book, the apps you were trying to do, how you carried yourself, your character, your charisma with people, like, it was like me watching myself, but it helped me mature more and be more confident in that part of me, because I'm watching the person I got it from. So by the time I had read your book, I was already tapping into, because I write music, I wrote poetry before. I was already, and it just gave me that extra confidence and boost to say, I can do that. Which, of course, my Uncle Squeaker write, we got writers in our family, but it's different when you see your parent. It's different. It's different, because I was still, even though I was grown, I still had become a sponge, like a child in that cell. Watching your mannerism, watching, even all the way down to your hygiene. All of that was something that I observed and watched, which helped me a lot, even after you had left. It was like, it crushed me the way they separated us and moved us, but I had to quickly adjust, because I knew where I was at, and I just embraced the moment of everything that I had gained from you, which the course of my life changed after that, and for the better. So
yeah. Okay. And Chantel, how did my incarceration, if it did, change you?
Well, I've always said, I tell people that, I've never been incarcerated, never been to jail, but it gave me the more sense that I never wanted to go. It made me more mindful of, not breaking the law. And, there was somewhat of an admiration that I grew to have with you, because, I just never could understand how we could come visit you, and you were always, upbeat. You always had a smile on your face, and that to me built resilience in me to look at you in the situation that you were in, and it was like, what? If he can put a smile on his face in this situation, whether it was fake or not, because I'm sure sometimes it was, but
it was fake.
Again,
it was fake.
It was fake sometimes, right? I know it was fake, but you still were able to do it. And so for me, it was a sense of resiliency and strength that it gave me, and something that I've been able to take through, take with me throughout my lifetime and just help me when I was just going through tough times. To, regardless of, sometimes, it just pays to smile through your pain, you know what I'm saying? And knowing that you're going to come out on the other side.
Right. Okay, what about you, Unc?
Okay, I wouldn't say that it changed me. It was a disappointment, but I thought, I tried to tell my nephews growing up, you don't want to go to jail. You don't want to be locked up. Then the next generation, I would try to instill in them that they didn't want to go there. And when we would go visit you or some of the others, I was like, this is not a place that you want to be. Then, when that happened, I was disappointed, by that. So, maybe I didn't do all I should, with them. So that was a disappointment also.
No, you did. No, that's one thing I want to emphasize to families. I know with my family, with y'all, it wasn't anything that y'all didn't do. I mean, y'all did everything that you were supposed to do. I made a bad decision, several of them. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with the way I was raised by you, granny, grandmama, and all my aunties and uncles. It had nothing to do with that. I made a mistake. And it happened to be a costly mistake, and I hate the pain that I caused my victims' families, but that was a mistake, and it had nothing to do with my upbringing. It was just me being stupid, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes you can do everything that you're supposed to do, and the person will still go the opposite way. I think that the way that I was raised has helped me to endure and persevere in these circumstances that I'm in. So. I mean, I thank y'all for that, but it wasn't anything that y'all did that had anything to do with me doing what I did. And I remember having a conversation with Granny about that, and she asked me that, and I told her, I said, no, Granny, no, you did everything right. And I wasn't saying that to appease her. That was the truth. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say something just to appease somebody. I'm not going to do that. And I was just telling her the truth. She did everything she was supposed to do. That was on me. And I think a lot of times people in my situation won't own up to that and won't admit that. My situation wasn't like Boo's. You feel what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. My daddy wasn't there, but all of y'all were. You feel what I'm saying? And I'm talking about very, very close. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I think the Boo situation was a little different. Y'all were there. But I think it was more going on there. You know what I'm saying? So, y'all did what y'all were supposed to do.
And this was different than living in the same household versus when you was house with us where he was not.
Yeah,
right.
He was
There's a lot of things that was different. That's right.
But I can really relate to what Unc is saying when he talks about the disappointment, because I know, like, once they became a little older and I would bring them to visit you, it was like my main focus was, I don't want you to be like your brother. I don't want this to be a place that you come to. And Boo and I have even had this conversation, because I'm saying, like, what is it? Where did I go wrong with the two of you? I felt like, I was preaching to them, and I felt like bringing them to see you, in my mind, it should have been enough to deter them from wanting to go there, because it was a deterrence for me. When I used to go visit Daddy, I was like, shit, I don't want to come here. But
you got to think about that. Granny did the same thing for us. We went to see Daddy.
Right.
And it actually
had the reverse. It actually had the reverse effect on it, because I think that was because of the place my daddy was in at that time, the mindset that he was in. Because at that time he hadn't presented who he is today. You know what I'm saying? He was still a part of their life, and as a kid, that's what we more so glorified. Because it wasn't. We wanted to see somebody, which I knew. He had most definitely took acceptance and responsibility at that time, but he was also trying to survive in prison as well, and so he had to take on that role. But as kids, I'm looking at, oh yeah, my daddy that. You know what I'm saying? And regardless of these barbed wire fences we coming through and these locked doors and all the all of that. To me,
Yeah.
even all the dramatics of hearing keys and doors and all of this stuff, you gotta get searched. And in some kids, man, it depends on the environment. My environment contribute to how my perspective of even walking in them doors, because of the music, the TV, the lifestyle, even before me coming to the prison. All of that's glorified. It just intensified it once I walk in and basically see my daddy also the head honcho.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes, man, I really regret during that time when y'all would come to visit me. Sometimes I regret. I was like, man, I need to go out here and just be crying and telling them how bad it is, and all. But it would have been phony. I would have been lying, because, like you say, I wasn't presenting myself, you know what I'm saying, the way that I am now. You know, I was that dude. You know what I'm saying? I was that dude, and I was straddling the fence and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, and I think that was a bad example. You know what I mean? But and I do believe that I'm partly responsible for what, you know, the path that you and Montrez took because of that. And I think that's another thing that I wish that people would be more mindful of. I don't know what to tell a parent in prison when it comes to setting the right example, other than to set the right example. You know what I mean? But it's another side to prison where you have to survive. I'm not criticizing anybody, you know what I'm saying, that does what they do, because I was there. I did all of that. You know what I mean? And I know how hard it is to survive in here. But you know, in doing that, in surviving this, you set a bad example for the ones behind you. And it's hard to in here survive this environment and set the right example for your kids or for your family, because the restrictions that you have to deal with in here, it's serious, it's real.
Yeah.
And when I say surviving, I'm talking about on a whole lot of different levels that the outside world does not understand, because you cannot relate to this. I don't want you to relate to this, but this is not easy to survive financially, mentally, spiritually. And you're doing all of these things to trying to survive, and there are no real opportunities that help you navigate this. So all you do is you do what you see, and you try to navigate through this. The first time you want to live, because it's a real threat in here to losing your life. You want to live, and then after you want to live, you want to eat. And however you do that, you do that. And it's not like you don't care about your family or your kids. It's not like that.
Right.
You do these things, and part of in the back of your mind, part of it says, I'm doing these things because I love my kids. I want to get back to them. I want to do something for them, because the opportunity is not there otherwise for you to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
For the most part.
I want to add something to that. It's a slippery slope to people. They expect, oh, you in prison, you supposed to be setting this example to show people that you don't never want to come here, and like you supposed to put on this sad face and cry and put all this. Man, listen, like you were just saying, you don't understand the factors, and I can say that from a personal level now. Just because you presented that to me, I was a kid with a kid, man. It did not mean it. I never looked at you as a bad person and make you a bad person that wasn't who you were. I've been there. I understand to the fullest extent. Now, people that you know in higher places that sit in these courts, and you done got write-ups for this or write-ups for that, and they look at it and try to say, oh, that behavior is contributed to the charge and he hasn't changed. That's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie, because you have never been in prison. You don't understand that, like you just ain't no programs, nothing presented for opportunities and this and that. So yeah, I understand. I can say I understand way more, and not to make an excuse to say, well, you shouldn't have presented what you presented. But I understand, because you could have went in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, but that's why I say granny and grandmama and uncle and all of y'all did the right things with me, as far as because if I would not have been raised the way that I was, I would have came in here an animal. I would have remained an animal, and I would still be an animal. But because of the way, I remember one time Granny came to see me at the county jail. I don't know if y'all even know this. But I remember Granny came to see me at the county jail. I think it was the one and only time that she came to see me at the county jail. And I came downstairs. I had some hair then. I'm bald headed now, so it is what it is. But I had some hair at that time, right? And I had one side of my hair just up, and then the other side was braided, and I had a pick in it. And when I went downstairs, I sat in front of Granny. She looked at me, and she said, "Boy, don't you ever come down here looking like that again. You are a baker, and you better act like it no matter where you're at." And I ain't, to this day, I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that. And the officer, I asked the officer to take me back upstairs. I went back upstairs, I cut my hair, cut it down, and came back down. Came back down. Because I knew I wasn't represented, and the intensity of not wanting to disappoint her again was all over me. And that's all over me today. And that's partly why I do the things that I do now. I know that there is an option, but look, let's keep it real. The majority of people do not have the type of family that I have, the type of support that I have, the type of love that I have, the type of opportunities I have. They don't have that. They do not have that. The majority of people in here are really, really, really living off of less than 50 cents an hour. And it's hard in here. And people expect us, they say all of these things about us, and they say that we should be able to survive this and live like that and set the example and don't do this and don't do that. I wish it was that clear. I do. I wish it was that clear. You know, and like I say, if y'all got anything else to say or add to this, come on with it, because I'm finna wrap this show up. I've really enjoyed talking to y'all on this, and I think that people will benefit from this session when they hear it. Anybody got anything else they want to add?
No,
hello?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good.
You good, Chantel?
I mean, just sitting here and just, listening to all of us, I think that we've all had these conversations separately with you. I may have had a conversation with Boo and had conversations with Unc, but I think it's powerful when we're able to sit and have, this conversation like this. And I feel like, it's so much more to be said, but, just hoping that, it will have some type of positive impact, on, family members who, are dealing with people that are incarcerated, or even just, the incarcerated. I feel like you and Boo have both been, awesome examples to people that, are incarcerated or have been incarcerated, that, there is a life after incarceration, that, you don't have to just be stuck in the fact that I was incarcerated, and just, that, woe is me. Boo has not used the excuse of what I could not do when I got out of prison. He made his way. And I feel like, I know that you would do the same, is making
Absolutely.
your way once you become free. And he is. And I just, hope that, as you all continue to do this and reach people, that, I feel like that you guys have been an inspiration. I know that you have been an inspiration to a lot of people.
All right.
And for that, I'm
right
proud.
there. Yeah, that's how we're gonna wrap this show up. I want to thank y'all for taking the time out and sitting down and talking to me on this episode, and I hope that we can do this again, because I think it's a lot more that can be said about this topic. And thank y'all again.
Thank you for using GTL.